Describe yourself in one word.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I don't know. If I were describing it, I don't know, to be honest. I'd probably just describe myself as average. I always thought of myself as the average Joe, and you can interpret that with what you will, but that's probably the easiest way to sum up lots of things about me.
How would you describe yourself to someone who doesn't know you?
Boy, if I had to describe myself to someone who doesn't know me, I would probably say I'm an energetic, passionate, enthusiastic individual that is hard to control and at times hard to focus. I'm excited and always interested in just about every aspect of life in the world, and so people learn real quickly that I have diverse interests and like to be kept captivated by diversity of interest and interesting activities.
What is your most memorable moment from when you were in college?
Oh boy.
That you can share with us. That you're willing to tell us.
When I was in college, well, I have to tell you that college took me an awfully long time to get through, and so I have many moments and many memories of that. You know, I'll tell you, I think my most memorable moment in school probably happened most recently, to be honest with you. I had the opportunity, as I was working on my doctorate degree, to have the president of the University of Montana on my search committee, as well as some colleague faculty that have been with me for a long, long time. And the commencement ceremonies took place outdoor in the football stadium, and we were fortunate to have Tom Brokaw as our commencement speaker. And so it was a great pleasure not only to hear from a journalism icon, but part of that ceremony allowed the doctoral students to actually come to stage and be hooded in front of Tom Brokaw. And so I remember that, and remember the feeling of both accomplishment, but also almost a feeling of awe being in the presence of somebody who is so well recognized, an American icon. And I think that day in general, because of all those emotions, all those opportunities, will probably stick out in my mind for a long time.
In your work life, what would you say has been your greatest achievement?
Boy, it's so hard for me to draw any single achievement to me. I mean, I'm a team player. I think one of the things I thrive on is the ability and the opportunity to work with lots of different individuals. And so if anything I could point to that would be my biggest achievement, it would be working with my colleagues and very desperate groups on my campus in Montana to bring them together and find ways where we can interact and work together and solve some of the big issues we had to face as teams and as colleagues versus a traditional autocratic top-down approach to solving those problems. And I think we created that culture of communication, collaboration, and collegiality. And so I would probably say that was the one thing I'm most proud of contributing to.
What profession did you want to go into when you finished high school?
I tell you, when I finished high school, I was not sure what profession that I wanted to go into. What I knew is I wanted to find some way to spend my life in the outdoors and get paid for doing it. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out right away, and even as I moved in towards my baccalaureate degree with an interest in that field, I quickly recognized that those things I loved to do were not necessarily things that I wanted to commit my profession to, but I found a way to balance both professional aspirations now and still be able to engage in my outdoor pursuits, which are things I truly am passionate about.
We know you're a hunter. What was the craziest hunting adventure?
I've actually had a few, but the one that I would sort of chalk up as the craziest was a trek that a friend and I took to Alaska by ourselves, unguided, thinking that we would be sort of the modern wilderness men and know what we were getting into. And I remember climbing into the bush plane on the day we were going out to set up camp, and getting into that plane and flying through these mountainous glaciers, beautiful country, absolutely beautiful, desolate, rugged, and landing on this gravel bar, and the pilot dropping her stuff off and then taking off and saying, "I'll see you in 10 days." So I remember thinking, what did we get ourselves into? And for 10 days, we hunted, we worked, we climbed the mountains, and we experienced weather and conditions that you can only dream of. You can't even explain it until you experience it. And we came home without a single animal, but had one of the most memorable and hair-raising events or hunting adventures of my life.
If you could go anywhere for one day, where would you go and what would you do?
Anywhere for one day. New Zealand, and I could take on Australia, but New Zealand really. I think in many ways the rural Mountain West, the Rocky Mountain West, has a lot of connection to New Zealand, but there's something about it that has an appeal to me that just someday I'll have to visit it, see its mountains, possibly fly fish in its streams, and experience its culture.
What are you going to miss most about living in Montana?
Oh, without a doubt, the people. One of the things that will always stick in my mind is how even in a growing city, by Montana standards of Great Falls, you never lost the personal connection with even pure strangers on the streets. And so the people make you feel like you're part of a community, part of a home, and almost like your extended family. And I have so many wonderful experiences with the people in Montana that it's been very hard to leave them, and that's probably what I'll miss the most.
What about LCCC caught your interest?
Well, I tell you, there's a few things about LCCC that really sort of drew me to the opportunity. You know, first and foremost, the location. Cheyenne, Wyoming, wonderful community. Wyoming, a wonderful state, the rural West with close proximity to modern culture and metropolitan areas. Just really what was appealing to us. And then to have a community college that, you know, it's not only the largest community college in the state of Wyoming, but one with such great potential that seemed to be untapped. And to find a community college, a large community college with amazing potential in a pro-community college state, and yet in the West with smaller populations and the opportunity to escape to the outdoors, really provided a whole package that was just utterly appealing to both myself and my entire family. And so, you know, looking at this as, yeah, there's some challenges, but oh, if we can overcome those challenges, what we could do, just had so much appeal to me that you know, we said this is something that we need to get involved with.
What is the greatest lesson you learned at your previous job?
I would say I probably have two equals in that regard. The first one is diplomacy. Knowing not to hasten to decisions, knowing to be thorough in your conversations and your willingness to listen to people regardless of where their perspective or their comments are coming from, and learning how to balance all of that so you keep people feeling connected, committed, appreciated, but also understand how to advance an agenda with those people working alongside of you instead of alienate you. So that would be one. The other one, to be quite honest, is humility. I don't think we work in an environment, especially in higher education, where we can tolerate individual personalities that command a room, command an argument, command a conversation. We need civil discourse, we need conversation. That's what we've been founded on. And in the world we're facing now, it's going to take all of us to overcome some of the major challenges ahead of us. And so to enter those conversations, you have to be willing to go in at the same level. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work that you would expect of anybody else. And so I learned that humility was an incredibly important value if we were going to be successful in higher education.
Joe, Dr. Schaffer, or Dr. J?
I prefer Joe, without a doubt. I'm open to being called just about anything within reason. I have been called many things, but I'm an informal person, and I understand in higher education we need to have those times where there's formality, and I appreciate that, but titles don't mean as much to me as the relationship that leads somebody to call me by my first name.
What do you value most in your life?
It's going to sound like a cliche because I keep saying it, but I think it's the people and the relationships that I have. First and foremost with my family, my wonderful wife, and I have two beautiful little daughters that they make the problems of my days, my world, go away when I'm able to interact with them. Right there with them is my family and the people that I hold near and dear to my heart. But closely there are also the friendships and the relationships that I've built along the way with that. To me, that's what living is about: is the mark people leave on you and the mark you can leave on people.
If you could spend a day with anyone living or dead, who would it be and why?
If I could spend a day with anyone living or dead, who would I want to spend with? Somebody that I've always appreciated, who passed away not long ago, and as a a rough satire to his approach is George Carlin. Anybody who has had the opportunity to interact with his materials or hear him in concert or see things, he brings sort of a no-nonsense approach to interpreting life through his comedy. But he's also been one of those individuals that has transcended maybe the more raunchous and raunchy aspects of comedy to children's activities, children's books and cartoons. He's been in the movies, and he, of many people that I've watched in the media, have experienced sort of this broad, exciting life and have found a way to bring a levity to the conversation. And so I think spending a day with him would be enjoyable for me, to be honest.
Do you have any hidden talents?
It depends on who you're talking to. Some things that I might think are a talent, other folks necessarily won't. For example, I consider myself a world-class duck caller. But I can tell you that my wife doesn't share that interest. When she hears me pull my duck and goose calls out, she's not too impressed. So that's a talent I think she would prefer I keep hidden without that. I don't. I have lots of aspirations to develop talents. I have a guitar sitting in my house that I've been meaning to learn how to play and have barely gotten past 3 chords. And so ask me that question again in 10 years.
Play it safe or take a risk?
Oh. I'll be honest, I'm a risk taker, but I'm an educated risk taker. I do my work, I do my diligence, but I think playing it safe has led us to a culture and a world of mediocrity or just status quo in my mind. I think some of the most influential individuals in our history have been those that have been willing to take a risk, but they do so with good counsel, with good advice, and good team and good support around them. But that's where the excitement lands, is taking those risks to become or to do something that playing it safe won't get you to.